Peace, 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 peace. It's your sister Ruma, Lisa Temple, beautiful upstate New York, Hudson Valley. And I'm coming to you today with a video. I don't even know how to categorize this one. I guess it would be like a POV, my spiritual version. I don't even know what to call it, but hey, I'm new here in this internet world, so be patient with me. But okay, so a lot of times people ask me about Mama Lisa Temple and what we do and why we do it and where we do it and all that good stuff like that. Bottom line, we are a bunch of seekers, just people who had a lot of questions at some point and decided that we were going to sit down collectively and try to find answers. So what I'm sharing with you today is something that is going on with me. I don't know about you, but when I get close to my solar return, which mine is in February, when I get close to my solar return, for whatever reason, many reasons, I start to, just get a little more contemplative, as you can imagine. What did I do with the year before? Did I do well? Did I meet my goals? Did I change? Did I grow? Did I step backwards? We ask ourselves all these questions. And not only that, with the people who celebrate the calendar year moving into 2026, you find groups and organizations, including ours, who start to make their schedules for the year coming. So 2026. So in looking at my opportunities for 2026, opportunities to present and host things, also to go out and be a part of things in my community and different communities. One of the groups that I have been following, you know how you become friends with somebody like so long ago, you forget when you became friends. In the beginning of my journey, I didn't come out seeking anything specific. So that means I met a lot of people from a lot of different walks. And in this particular group of women, they are in Washington State, and they have got a goddess, well, a sister circle under Lilith. So the sisters of Lilith, they are so shout out to them, sisters of Lilith. They every year have a wonderful festival. I've never been able to attend in person, but I've had companions who have. And so looking at the upcoming opportunities for 2026, I saw they had a listing up for their festival for the year, which will be in the summer. And they were going to be talking about the Morrigon. So if you ever hung out with us over in Mount Lisa Temple, we love talking about the Morrigon. Okay, we love talking about the Morrigon. And I'm gonna tell you what, this is just mind blowing for me, right? So I read this call to action. They looking for somebody for the Morrigon, right? So we'll go step by step because I'm excited. I'm always excited when I'm talking about this kind of stuff. Get used to it. If you're gonna hang out with me, get used to it. All right, so chain of events. So I see this thing about the Morrigon, and I'm like, oh man, I would really love to be a presenter, a guest speaker, because this is one of the goddesses that I rock with. We be here, what I'm saying? We be like here. And so but I start reading the call to action, and I realized quickly that they were looking for something very traditional, very rooted in the myth and lore that had already been shared, like these shared stories of Ireland and these different places, because the Morrigon, in my studies we consider her the goddess, the Celtic, Welsh Celtic goddess of phantoms. But they refer to her as the goddess of sovereignty and all these other things. So I was like, this is awesome. because I'm thinking, well, I'll be offering another perspective. But then I started to doubt myself. And I said, well, maybe they wouldn't be interested in a more, or should I say not a more, a different perspective than the one that they had. That's what I'm gonna say. I don't even know what word to use there, so just mind fart. But I realized that my experience with the Morrigon, it shaped and molded how I use the energy of the Morrigon, and how I receive and work with the knowledge and gifts of the Morrigon. So we got to go back to go forward, right? My first introduction to the Morrigon was through a divination deck by Junie Parkhurst, 27 years ago. So the deck that I have is 26 years ago. 26 years ago. So the deck that I have is 26 years old. And at the time, I didn't know anything about the Morrigon. I knew something about different goddesses because, you just hear things along the way, but I hadn't done any in-depth study on this particular goddess at all. I had never heard of her. So of them, because it's the Morrigons, you'll get there. So anyway, when I got the deck, shout out to my brother. He gave me both the decks basically that I'm about to talk to you about anyway. But when I got the deck and I came across this card for the very first time, you'll see for yourself. You can imagine. I was like, what? So here's the Morrigon, depicted by Junie Parkhurst. And as you can imagine, I didn't quite know what I was looking at. Now, as a lover of esoteric art, I have to say I was fascinated, right? Because I'm like, what was the artist saying here? And what are they saying about this goddess? And I was in awe and excited about studying this. But when I got into the book, the little book that came with it, right? And again, shout out to Junie Parkhurst. When I got to the little book, it didn't have a lot. It was like, oh yeah, fears and patterns of self-thought, psychological warfare, all these different things. I realized later through my studies, I connected it with Pisces. You know what I'm saying? That house where we got all the deep secrets and hidden talents and hidden sorrows and all of that. And I'm sure that, as you begin to think about the picture in the house of Pisces, you'll see why it was easy to tie it to that, into Neptune. And it talks about a lack of clarity and war with oneself. And I was thinking, I was like, well, I was having a little war with myself because I'm like, well, would they want to hear what I had to say about the Morrigon? So because it was just such a very small passage on the Morrigon, this is all it is in this book about the Morrigon. That's it, nothing else. So I and my companions in Melody's Temple, we went on the search. We were on the hunt for the stories. And we found some. We found some. You have to be able to understand history, what was going on in history at the time, who was talking, because depending on who was talking is how you're going to get the story, right? It's his story, right? So we looking for her story. And so again, I had never seen anything like this. So now come on back forward, fast forward back on up here where we at. And you know, my youngest daughter loves Morrigon, and she loves it because I make these three faces whenever I'm talking about them. You know what I'm saying? She'd be like, "Which one of the Morrigon are you talking about?" And I'll make one of the said faces. I will save you from the said faces if you learn to hang out with me. Well, should I say, should you choose to hang out with me a lot, you'll learn about those three faces and how I make them throughout, you know, my conversations about the Morrigon. Silly. Anyway, we had just been talking about the Morrigon before I saw the invitation to speak at that event, and I hadn't been thinking about him any other way. And but we had been talking about it, and because we were talking about psychological warfare, and she asked me to make one of the faces, and I did. So you know, I was just like, wow. So I see the call to action. Something goes on. A couple of days go by. I go to do a general reading for the week. Well, who comes up? The Morrigon. And so she came up again. They came up again. And in my universal deck, the Mars card came up. Beautiful card, right? Beautiful universal deck. Beautiful, beautiful, beautiful deck. Linda Goodman on that one, by the way. Had that deck about 25 years. When I start doing these numbers, man, I'd be like, whoa. But anyway, these two cards came out. And I also do dice divination. And I use Jasper dice. So for those who know about diceology, you'll understand what I'm about to say. I rolled a 4 and a 1, which was a 5, but the significance is that the 2 6s were facing me. So that was 12, and they were red, and Mars and red, and all these things go together. Trust me, it all's connected. It really truly is. And you know, like I said, when I started this video, I don't really know how to categorize this video as much as maybe my ramblings, you know. But what I find is it's important to share because the Morrigon represents such a great opportunity for us to explore our inner landscape. And that was what I would share if I was joining the sisters and doing their annual event, their solstice event, is that, you know, how the Morrigon have helped me to look at some different psychological phases that or stages that I've gone through and that I go through, and how I deal with them. And that Mars card coming out, I don't know if you can see here, but the Mars card, you see him, he is balancing a sword in between his hands. And you see the red in the back, that's for Mars. You see the stripes on the floor. You know, some people say that, you know, the Romans, they loved Mars for the fact that, you know, they won wars and strategies and all these things like that, the god of war, but they hated the fact that blood had to actually spill. And it talks about this anger, this fuel, this passion, this fire that comes with Mars, and being able to use it, but in a controlled kind of way. And that's why the balancing of the sword is so important in that depiction, in that picture. I find, again, I'm an esoteric art fan, so looking at art and really studying it and looking at the different little nuances that the artist, you know, took time to put in, you know, you begin to see how you can interpret and use these things. So I thought about the Morrigon and you know, this psychological warfare and how we are under this constant bombardment of just things, you know, our childhoods, you know, the way we were raised, our adolescence, our jobs, our, you know, our family, our friends. We have so many things going on in these mountains, in these casabas, right? with the Morrigon, when I would look at them and they talked about phantoms, you know, when I think of a phantom, you know, I think of a couple of things. You know, what do you think about when you think of phantom? You can put it down in the bottom. But what do you think about when you think of phantom? When I think of phantom, I think of past memories, you know, maybe hauntings. What's another word I would use? Something like this things you can't let go, you know, just things that hold on to you, that have this like this almost invisible hold. And that, and you know, psychological warfare, you know, that's a lot of what you're dealing with, is the hold that things have on your mind. But again, regardless of what it is from our lives, you know, past or present, right? So when I first started working with the Morrigon, I sat down and I stared kind of really just at their faces. And what struck me was that in this stage here, you see a grief-like state, tear, head fell down, you know, head down. And then as you phase up, you see this look of like shock and awe, almost confusion, what have you, right? But then you have this face. And this face right here, it always interests me because it wasn't like a, I don't know, my daughter said they was scary at one time when she was small. I always said that it made me think about a person who had seen a lot and was able to navigate it and really transmute and use the wisdom of what transpired in these other two spaces, right? But now further, you know, like I said, I drew a with the dice, I did a 4 and a 1. So for culture freedom, you know, a lot of times when we don't feel free, we feel bogged down. You know, that's the opposite of freedom, right? Being bogged down, oppressed. So you feel this heaviness, this weight, and you know, and sometimes on our minds we have that heavy psychological, just no matter what we do, we just can't seem to get out of that circle, that loop that keeps playing in there, that keeps us down in a low state, right? And then I thought about the second state, which was this state of disbelief and awe and you know, in confusion. I think about when I first started my spiritual journey. I was very angry. Too angry was an understatement. I don't like to be lied to. I don't like to be lied to. And I definitely don't like smoke blown up my skirt. And I feel like that's what had happened. I had a banana in the tailpipe. Everything that I thought I knew, I didn't know. And, you know, I've said this in several of my other videos again. This might be the first time this, you know, video of mine is playing on this platform, but, you know, I've done some things over on Instagram and Facebook and YouTube. So you might be able to go back to one of those videos where I talk about my initial awakening when I realized that I had been being lied to. But the key thing that I said was being a straight A student and then realizing you being lied to is like, oh, so I'm a straight A student in lies, because that's how I felt. And I was pissed. You know, I mean, nights of writing words and, you know, writing them 5 times each, putting the definition, putting them in the sentence. For those who know, you know, I'm doing this spelling, and these words don't even mean what I think they mean. They don't even mean what they say in the book. But that's a whole nother thing. So I was angry, needless to say. And it was hard for me to wrap my mind around a system that would deliberately give me false information. Like, why? Why are you giving me false information? Like, well, who am I that you got a lie to me, as my mother used to say? You know, like But here's this whole system with all these lies that build all this just wrong, stinking thinking in your mind. And here we had a Morrigon under psychological warfare. We are constantly, and you hear people talk about it just in different ways. And again, that's another reason why I just, like I said, I don't know how to really categorize this video, is to say, other than I'm just sharing, you know, what came along. What came down through the stream of consciousness. And I really want to say, shout out to, again, the Sisters of Lilith. They are always doing amazing things. They're, like I said, I've never been able to join them in person, but I've always heard wonderful things. And, you know, I'll be sharing this video with them, and, you know, just for the sake of letting them know that, you know, even when people don't get out to their events do make a difference, and their studies do make a difference, and a lot of us are on the same page, and a lot of us are studying the same things. But culturally, like I was saying with that culture freedom, the freedom that we have in studying from our own culture's perspective is giving us more information that was just put in these books, because now we know that these books have more lies than truths. Right? So the anger that I had to find a way to work past it, because you see, it wasn't logical to me. So just being mad wasn't going to do nothing. I had to figure out what I was going to do about it. I had to figure out what was the lies I was actually told. Was there any validity to it? Can I take any of it? What do I replace it with? Who am I? Where am I? What am I? All these things just start to, they come together. And so that anger, I had to find a way to transmute it and use it. And that's one thing that Mars is good for, that initiatory energy. And that's the thing that, you know, like the Romans said, yes, it was war and destruction, but man, the initiative to start something new, to bring something new, to burn down the old and start fresh. You know, I work in the ag department sometimes, and, you know, burning crops, burning land to be able to grow the soil up and fix the soil up. Sometimes you just got to scorch the damn earth, you know? But when you're not scorching the earth, you take that energy and you transmute it and you do something with it, you create, you know? And so, you know, this state here, to me, always kind of represents that, oh my God, that realization of so many things I've been lied to. I don't know who I am. I don't know where I am. I don't know what I am. How do I move forward? Am I going to go back down here again? If I get back down here, how am I going to get over here? But then there's this. And that's the one, like I said, that always caught my attention. It was like she said, so I've been lied to. And you know what I love about this picture and this card? They have no relation. If you notice, her eyes are red, right? So it's like she took that anger, that war that she was high and deep in, and then she had to take the glass, she had to open her eyes, so it was burning, but then there's this, and she can see clearly now. And that's what the Morrigon has done and continues to do for me and for those who I walk with them through their journey, as we talk about those phantoms and going back and getting those things that have causing us psychological distress, and how to work on them, because they don't just go away. They didn't just start. They were programmed in over time. And so it takes time to get that stuff out. You know, some people call it a purge, some people call it a detox, spiritual cleansing, whatever you want to call it. I'm not here to debate those kind of words with you. I'm just here, again, sharing with you what just came, you know, the Morrigon that came. And we are in Capricorn season right now, moving towards Aquarius season, a couple of days out from Aquarius season. Boom, boom, bow. And after Aquarius season comes what? Pisces season. And the Aquarius season is the I know, the age of Aquarius. We are here. And when these messages come to us, these things come to us, I'm always torn because the internet is not my favorite place to be. I'm an in-person person. I do lectures back in the day, study groups, meeting in grandma's living room, that kind of thing, very Gnostic, very Gnostic, very, very just, back in the day when you hear about, having church in the house, that's kind of the vibe that I've always felt most comfortable in intimate settings. So these interwebs for me is like mad exposure. I feel so naked, you know what I mean? And but these messages have to be shared. Not just mine, everybody's. And so while I am very Orwellian, I'd see the benefit in being able to share with each other. I don't know. I got more stuff. Trust me. It's more because the reading for today was just as interesting. The reading for today was just as interesting. The download for today was just as interesting. But I wanted to give you this one because we just we get behind. We start to well, for me, I start to study, and all of it start to pile up, and it'd be like, man, how many videos I gotta sit down and make in order to be able to tell everything I just did in this past 72 hours or what have you. But what I can promise you is that what I bring to you, I always bring with the best of intention, with clear, intentions of just being able to share and maybe help someone along their journey. And you know what? And when I play these things back, sometimes help me too. Most times help me too. So I thank you for allowing me to share with you about the Morrigon. And if you want to know more about the Morrigon, we'll be talking about her in different spaces. And if you'd like to study a little bit more about the perspective in which we study her from, and her ties to the different cultures and how they see her and view her and use her energy, just hang out with us and we'll be glad to share that information with you. If you are not following me, follow. Put a comment down below. Tell me what you know about the Morrigon. Did you even know the Morrigon exists? Have you even heard of them before? Either way, I'm looking forward to hearing from folks. If you're over on Instagram, I'm over on Instagram at Mawaliza Temple 1, and on YouTube, Mawaliza with a Z, 4610. And I'll put all that information below. Thank you so much. I'm your sister Rue, sharing with you on this beautiful day, snowy day. So enjoy. Hope you learned something new about the Morrigon today. Peace.